Hey guys, it's Jenna coming to you with a video about how long the lender appraisal process takes and what you can expect during that time and how it actually works. So this is a question that everybody asks when they go through the process, because how long the appraisal takes and kind of how that works is really dependent upon each individual situation. Here in DFW, we have a lot of licensed appraisers through the state of Texas. The state of Texas actually licenses appraisers that work for appraisal companies that work directly for the lender. And the way that it works is that when a lender has an appraisal job to do, they send it out to a pool of their approved vendor list with their appraisers that are approved to do the appraisals through their company, through that individual lender. And an appraiser will pick it up and they will accept the job, and then they will proceed with doing the appraisal. In the DFW Metroplex, we have a lot of people that are licensed to be able to do this. So the Metroplex is going to be a little bit different than maybe some of the rural areas in Texas where there might not be as many appraisers that are available. So I'm speaking specifically right now to the DFW area and kind of how that works. So like I said, the appraiser works directly for the lender who has hired them. Even though you have paid for their service, you are technically not the one that is responsible for talking to them or giving them direction or anything like that. That is the lender's responsibility. For that reason, the people that are in the contract, me, the other agent, you as the buyer, and then the seller, really don't have any control over how long this process takes or when the appraisal is due back. Nor do we have any control over when that appraiser goes out to do the actual appraisal, or speaking to them directly. There's reasons for this. The main reason is that we want to make sure, that the appraisers that go out are not influenced at all by anything that could affect the valuation of the property. They want to get a completely unbiased opinion of value for the property, and it's important that nobody speaks to them directly about that. So let's say that the process is taking a little bit longer. I have clients that'll go, is there anything I can do? Can I call the appraiser directly and tell them to hurry up and get them out there? The answer is no, you can't. There's really nothing we can do that forces the appraiser to hurry on up. Typically what happens is when the lender sends out the job and says we need somebody to come appraise this property, along with that request is when the appraisal report is due back. And how long this process can take depends on the type of loan that you are qualified for. So a conventional loan, an FHA loan, and a VA loan are all going to have different due dates, just depending on what's going on and kind of how long the average return is taking recently to get those reports back. So let's say that we're in the middle of selling season, it's in the spring, everybody is buying a house and it's crazy. Well, obviously, just because the selling season gets busier doesn't mean that there's any more appraisers that are available to do the job. So obviously their time becomes a little bit more crunched, and it might take a couple extra days than it would have if you're buying a house in the middle of December, right around Christmas, and there's, plenty of appraisers that are available. So the due date is going to be what the lender tells the appraiser to come do. The way that this typically works is that they'll come out, they'll do the appraisal at the actual property, and then they'll get the report back to the lender. We hope that it gets done pretty fast, but sometimes it could take a little bit longer. Once the appraisal report comes back, it goes to a team of reviewers at the lender to make sure that it has everything that is required on that particular appraisal, that they have the comps that they have are approved, it's a final review, and then once it's accepted by the lender, then it gets sent to you directly as the buyer. I'm actually a secondary person to all this, so you would actually send me the appraiser report if you decide that you want to do that. The only thing that I will know is whether or not we hit value on the property, which means that they estimated the value to be at least what our contract sales price is, or if there's any lender required repairs that are necessary, and then I will know what those repairs are so that we can go to the seller and actually ask them to fix it. So in the event that an appraised value comes back higher than what we have offered on it, that means that you, as the buyer, actually start your home purchase with equity on your property. So let's say that you offered $200,000 for your house. They came back and approved it and appraised it at $205,000. In a manner of speaking, you would have now received $5,000 worth of equity on your house because the valuation on it in the open market is $200,000 and it's been valued at $205,000. In the event that it comes back less, at that point then we would have to go through and negotiate a new sales price with the seller. The seller has to agree to sell the house for less, but if they do not, and you decide that you don't want to pay any of the difference to buy that house, you then have the ability to terminate the contract and still receive your earnest money back. So let's say that same house, we offered $200,000, it came back at $198,000. Well, does the seller want to sell it for $198,000, or are they going to ask that you pay the additional $2,000 in cash to meet that sales price? You are not obligated to do that, and they are also not obligated to sell the house to you at that reduced price. So at that point then it becomes another negotiation. Let's say that the lender requires repairs that maybe the seller doesn't agree with, and they decide, nope, we don't want to worry about doing those repairs, and you as the buyer don't want to spend the money to do those repairs on a house that isn't yours yet, then at that point, again, you would be able to terminate the contract and get your earnest money back. There's an appraisal contingency in your contract that we've gone over before that says that in order for buyer approval to be met, part of that is to get an appraised value that is at least what the contract price is, and also that all lender required repairs are resolved prior to closing. If neither of those two things happen, then you as the buyer, that's no fault of your own, you can actually terminate the contract and get your earnest money back. So with all of that said, the appraiser appraising a property is not an exact science. This is an opinion of value. Even the appraiser has an opinion of value. So, we hope that the appraiser is educated and has experience within the area in which he is appraising the property, and that he is utilizing all of the best comps for that area so that he can get a really good opinionation of value. Occasionally there will be an appraisal that comes back that's really wrong. Doesn't happen very often, but occasionally it does, in which case we can argue the appraisal or try to resolve that with the lender directly. But most of the time, this is usually an easygoing process. It doesn't take as long as, it's not a very long drawn out process. Hopefully we get it back pretty fast. And then once we do that, we're able to move forward with the underwriting process and to get the house closed. So be expecting about 10 days, I would say, from the time that we order the appraisal and then to the time that the appraisal report actually comes in. The appraisal will not be ordered until we go through the negotiating process of the initial repair, the option period time frame, and that is just to make sure that you definitely want this property. This is something that you really want, because you do have to pay that appraisal fee, which is generally about $500, depending on the house that you're buying and then what the lender sets that amount to be. So they just want to make sure that you're not wasting money on a house that you don't really want. So I hope that answers your questions. If you have any more questions, obviously please reach out to me and I can talk more about it. But in the meantime, this is just one of those things. Sometimes that just takes another ounce of patience, which this process generally tends to expect out of you. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Bye.